Chapter 41. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jizhou's fallen. 800 miles, urgent. Jizhou's fallen. 800 miles, urgent. Jizhou's fallen. 800 miles, urgent. That morning, a messenger on horseback burst into the capital, throwing the city into turmoil. Jizhou fell. How? Am I dreaming? Wasn't everything fine there not long ago? The rebellion of the 8 kings, wait, the Empress offed the king of Yan, so it's the rebellion of the 7 kings now. But wasn't that a northern problem? How's Jizhou involved? I heard those Taiping Dao people have been stirring up trouble. Could they be behind this rebellion? Another rebellion? How did the great Zhou get so messed up? We're not even done with the rebellion of the 8 kings, and now there's a full-blown revolt occupying a whole province. Heh, just wait. The capital's next. Things were better when Duke Wei was around. Peaceful times, happy people. This mess is all the Empress's fault. Watch your mouth. The Jinui have been rounding people up left and right. The prisons are packed. You bad-mouthing her. They'll haul you in for questioning faster than you can blink. Humph, you can't silence everyone. Better to drain a river than try to stop people from talking. This Empress is going to be the end of the great Zhou dynasty. That the capital was buzzing. Even the Jinui couldn't keep people quiet. Meanwhile, things weren't any calmer at court. What is going on? Ji Luoyao's voice echoed in Taishan Hall, barely containing her rage. Her chest heaved, and the beads of her crown trembled. She could barely keep her composure as she stared at the intelligence report. She'd scraped together 1,000,000 soldiers, hoping to crush the 8 princes' rebellion fast, then get the country back on track. But nothing was going according to plan. The 1,000,000 troops were assembled, but the rebellion wasn't going down easily. For one thing, there was the issue of a commander. The Empress didn't trust anyone enough to give them sole command, and no one at court was up to the job anyway. So, the army was split into groups, each fighting independently, weakening them. For another, the death of the Prince of Yan had infuriated the remaining 7 princes. They'd stopped fighting each other and united. With help from other hidden forces, they were holding off the imperial army, resulting in a stalemate. Ji Luoyao believed she could win if the court held its ground, but at this critical moment, Jizhou had to go and explode. Jizhou was the heartland of the Great Zhou, a major source of people and taxes. Losing it would be a death blow. Privy Councillor, what's happening? Ji Luoyao glared at the minister in charge of military affairs. The Privy Councillor was pale, but he forced himself to say, I already reported the Taiping Dao matter. Ji Luoyao's face tightened. She remembered now, she'd been focused on crushing the 8 kings' rebellion. 1,000,000 soldiers cost a fortune to feed. She'd never understood how expensive things were until she took charge. Now, the Minister of Revenue was constantly in her ear, so she couldn't afford to drag things out. Compared to that, some small-time bandits didn't seem like a big deal, but now, those small-time bandits had exploded into a major problem. She wouldn't admit her mistake now. Taking responsibility would further ruin her already shaky reputation. Someone else had to take the blame. The Privy Council handles all military affairs. She snapped. It's your job to keep things stable. How did a bunch of rebels grow right under your noses? You're to blame. That the Privy Councillor twitched. The Privy Council was in charge in name only. Did you get our permission to move 1,000,000 troops? He couldn't say that. Instead, he explained. The Taiping Dao, or Yellow Turban Army, started as small-time bandits. But recently, they've been growing at an incredible rate, spreading throughout Jizhou. I reported this to your Majesty and sent troops to suppress them. He cautiously glanced at the Empress. But your Majesty, you pulled 150,000 troops from Jizhou's surrounding provinces and counties, leaving it vulnerable. The Taiping Dao took advantage of that. So, this is my fault. Ji Luoyao asked coldly, emphasizing each word. The Privy Councillor knelt and begged for mercy. It's all my fault. But the Taiping Dao is powerful now. They've occupied cities, and many sects have surrendered. I beg your majesty to send troops soon, or we'll be in serious trouble. Sects in Jizhou surrendered. Ji Luoyao's face changed. She thought it was just bandits exploiting Jizhou's weakness. If the Taiping Dao could suppress sects, that changed everything. There aren't many sects in Jizhou, but there are some. The Divine Sword sect, for example, is a top-tier sect with a heavenly realm master. They've always been unruly. The Taiping Dao really suppressed them. Ji Luoyao didn't believe it. They say the Taiping Dao has 3 leaders, Generals Tiangong, Digong, and Rengong. General Rengong and 3,000 yellow turban warriors wiped out the Divine Sword sect overnight. Hearing this, the officials gasped. The Divine Sword sect wasn't one of the top sects, but it was still a first-rate power. They had tens of thousands of disciples and a heavenly realm master, wiped out overnight. And with only General Rengong and 3,000 soldiers. The Taiping Dao's leadership was clearly not to be underestimated, but the court was focused on the northern king. Where would they find the troops to put down this revolt? They weren't entirely without options. The problem was, too few troops might fail, while too many would bankrupt the court. They had to support 1 million soldiers in the north already. The court was broke. Fighting on 2 fronts wouldn't last long. Ji Luoyao knew this. Looking at the kneeling privy envoy and the silent officials, she felt overwhelmed, so tired, she wanted to give up. Just then, another guard announced. Report. The Golden Horde has sent an envoy to request an audience with your majesty. That the officials paled. The Golden Horde bordered the Great Zhou. They were ambitious and had always been a threat. Would they exploit the rebellion of the 8 princes and the Taiping Dao situation? Chapter 42. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just then, an envoy from the Golden Horde requested an audience, and their intentions seemed suspect. Still, the Golden Horde was a major power. Refusing their envoy outright might appear cowardly. Great Zhou was a land of etiquette, a great nation. It couldn't afford to lose face and become a laughingstock. Ji Luoyao took a deep breath, quickly composing herself. Bring in the Golden Horde's envoy, she commanded. Moments later, a group of envoys from the Golden Horde were led into the Taishan Hall. The leader, a man of the Hu people, wore traditional Hu clothing and a queue. He gave a slight bow. May eternal heaven be praised, and Baldan humbly wishes Her Majesty a long life. Thank you for your blessings. Ji Luoyao's expression remained neutral. What brings you here? She asked directly. Baldan, the envoy, scanned the hall, assessing the expressions of the Great Zhou's officials. Then, he spoke calmly. We've heard that Great Zhou has been experiencing some unrest recently, a rather unstable situation. Great Zhou and the Golden Horde have always been like siblings, working together. Therefore, my Khan has expressed his willingness to send troops to assist Her Majesty the Empress. That won't be necessary. Ji Luoyao cut him off without hesitation. That was a joke. While Great Zhou was indeed facing turbulence, it wasn't desperate. Besides, even if it were, she'd never ask the Golden Horde for help. They were ambitious, constantly eyeing the fertile lands of the Central Plains. It's easy to invite a god, but hard to get rid of him. Once the Golden Horde's army entered, getting them to leave would be a nightmare. Baldan seemed to anticipate her rejection, showing no surprise. He pressed on. Since your majesty declines, we'll drop the subject. However, I have another matter to discuss. And what is that? We've heard that your majesty remains unmarried, and my Khan is a true hero. You two would be a match made in heaven. My Khan hopes to propose marriage to your majesty. What do you say? The words dropped like a bomb, and the court erupted. Many of the officials present were furious. Sure, the Golden Horde was strong, but they saw the grasslands as barbaric. Let him try. I'll wake him up with a face full of pee. Arrogant fool. Delusional. Your Majesty, allow me to throw this lunatic out of the court. Empress Ji Luoyao was equally enraged. She glared at Baldan, her voice icy. Do you have a death wish? As the words echoed, a terrifying aura surged from her, washing over Baldan like a tidal wave. Baldan's face paled slightly, but he wasn't a subject of Great Zhou and didn't share their awe of the Empress. Instead of backing down, he channeled his own power to meet her head-on. as an envoy of the Golden Horde, he was no weakling. He was a powerful figure in the Dharma image realm, but even among those in the Dharma image realm, a vast gulf existed. He couldn't withstand the Empress's overwhelming force. His face flushed crimson, and his legs trembled so violently that he was on the verge of collapsing right there in the Taishan Palace. At that critical moment, a red-robed lama standing behind Baldun stepped forward. With a single step, he was in front of Baldun. He placed his hands together, seemingly doing nothing, yet, just standing there, he seemed as tall and unyielding as a mountain. Instantly, the oppressive and terrifying momentum vanished. At the same time, an invisible aura spread outward, and the entire Taishan Palace seemed to fall under his control. A suffocating pressure gripped everyone present, as if they were carrying a tremendous weight. Suddenly, all eyes turned to the red-robed Lama with a newfound respect, a powerful master of the heavenly realm. Without a doubt, this red-robed Lama was a true master, capable of dominating the entire hall single-handedly. However, this was the palace of Great Zhou, the heart of the empire. Naturally, they possessed heavenly realm masters of their own. Almost immediately, two generals emerged from the side halls, like twin storms erupting from the sea, or two terrifying dragons bearing their fangs. They lunged at the red-robed Lama from opposite directions. These two generals were the supreme commanders of the Great Zhou Imperial Army's elite Benwei and Yulinchi regiments. They were also the two pillars guarding the Great Zhou Palace. The three heavenly realm masters clashed, and the entire hall was buffeted by gusts of wind. The battle between heavenly realm masters was too intense and loud. In Great Zhou, the three of them had some concerns and naturally didn't dare to use their full strength. Still, the red-robed Lama's ability to hold his own against two opponents, even for a short time, demonstrated his immense power. Ji Luoyao's eyes narrowed, her gaze fixed on the red-robed Lama. "May I know your name?" she asked solemnly. "I am Samo, a humble monk, paying my respects to Her Majesty the Empress." That the red-robed Lama contained his aura and greeted her with courtesy. "So, you're Samo, the Golden Horde's national teacher." Ji Luoyao recognized him instantly. No wonder he was so powerful. She'd heard he was considered a rare cultivation genius in the Golden Horde, breaking through to the heavenly realm decades ago. After being appointed imperial teacher by the Golden Horde's Khan, he devoted himself to cultivation. But for some unknown reason, he'd come to Great Zhou. Ji Luoyao was curious. As Empress, she had no need for pretense. "What brings you here, imperial teacher?" she asked directly. "I have cultivated for many years, but my strength has stagnated. I heard that the Central Plains is vast and rich, so I came to see it. It seems there are indeed many powerful people here." King Samo looked at the two commanders of the Tiger Guards and Feathered Guards, his expression eager. Ji Luoyao smiled inwardly. She had heard that King Samo was a martial arts fanatic. Now she saw it was true. "Envoy, is there anything else you wish to say?" Ji Luoyao turned her gaze back to Baldun, her expression indifferent. Compared to King Samo, a heavenly realm master, she had no reason to be polite to Baldun. Baldun knew he had angered the Empress and dared not be arrogant. Forgetting his two previous requests, he cautiously asked, "Has Her Majesty considered our previous proposal?" "What proposal?" Ji Luoyao frowned slightly. 200,000 warhorses in exchange for Duke Wei, Jiang Hao. Baldun brought up the old matter again. "What? 200,000 warhorses for Duke Wei?" The civil and military officials gasped at the outrageous deal. The generals, in particular, who knew the value of cavalry, stared with wide eyes. Normally, a few thousand warhorses would be worth fighting to the death for. 200,000. What a concept! With that many horses, the court could quickly raise a massive mobile force. They could break the current stalemate in a heartbeat. With that thought, everyone present looked at the Empress. Though they dared not say it aloud, it was clear from their expressions that many favored the deal. They valued substance over face. After all, the Golden Horde was offering so much. Ji Luoyao fell silent. Months ago, she had dismissed the Golden Horde's offer out of hand, but now, she hesitated. Jiang Hao was useless. Would it be better to trade him for the 200,000 warhorses? But she remained silent, and no one knew her thoughts. Finally, Ji Luoyao raised her head and looked at Baldun, the envoy of the Golden Horde. She neither agreed nor refused. Instead, she said meaningfully, you may go to Tianlao and ask Jiang Hao if he is willing to be exchanged. Chapter 43. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After the court session, Baldan and the others didn't go straight to Tianlao to see Jiang Hao. Instead, they were told they'd see him the next day, but before that, someone else showed up at Tianlao. It was the female emperor's uncle, Jiang Hao's close friend, Prince Duan, Ji Yuanheng, known as the Eight Wise Kings. Compared to other princes, who were either pleasure-seekers or power-hungry, Ji Yuanheng was a breath of fresh air. He was not only smart and diligent but also brave and responsible. With a truly good character. He never abused his power. Instead, he'd often recommend talented people from poor backgrounds and stand up for the common folk. He truly lived up to the name virtuous. But he had no interest in the throne and never tried to seize power. Both the former emperor and the current female emperor trusted him completely and always had him oversee clan affairs. In a way, he was the perfect man. He had an excellent reputation and was highly respected by officials, commoners, and even the royal family. Your Highness Prince Duan. What brings you here? Jiang Hao acted surprised when he saw Prince Duan appear on the prison's 18th floor. Of course, his surprise was fake. His shadow demon, lurking in the shadows, had already informed him the moment the prince entered the prison. Prince Duan didn't seem to notice Jiang Hao's acting. He smiled smugly. Surprised? I haven't seen you in months, but you haven't lost any weight. Looks like you're living the good life in here. As he spoke, Prince Duan set down a food box and pulled out a plate of delicious dishes. They looked like they'd been made by a top chef. If I remember correctly, these are some of your favorites. Here, let's eat and chat. The fragrant smell tempted Jiang Hao. As old friends, he didn't stand on ceremony. He quickly sat down, grabbed his chopsticks, and started eating. So, what brings you here today? Jiang Hao asked casually. Mid-bite, Prince Duan paused, looked at Jiang Hao, sighed, and said helplessly, you might not realize it, but things have changed a lot since you've been locked up. Honestly, I barely recognize the great Zhou dynasty anymore. Jiang Hao didn't react. He just kept eating. Prince Duan sighed. Jiang Hao, the Zhou needs you. Jiang Hao looked up, glanced at him, chuckled, and shook his head. I'm just a prisoner now. What good is telling me this? Prince Duan's expression turned bitter. I know you must be resentful. You worked so hard for the Zhou, contributed so much, and now you're misunderstood by Her Majesty because of some slanderous lies. You've even been thrown into Tianlao. Don't worry, I'll get to the bottom of this and clear your name. Jiang Hao couldn't help but laugh. Come on, Prince Duan, you're treating me like a child. Don't you know why I'm in here? Jiang Hao looked at Prince Duan, exasperated. Let's be honest. With my status, who could touch me except Her Majesty herself? Prince Duan was silent. He understood the power dynamics well enough. Some things were just hard to say out loud. He stared at Jiang Hao for a long time before finally saying, Jiang Hao, when the former emperor died unexpectedly, you stepped up and saved the great Zhou dynasty. Everyone saw you as a savior. Now, great Zhou is in trouble again. Don't you want to help? Help how? Jiang Hao put down his chopsticks, his face blank. Even if I help again, what's the point? This great Zhou belongs to your Ji family. How many times can an outsider like me save it? Prince Duan was speechless again. The great Zhou was, after all, the Ji family's kingdom. No matter how much Jiang Hao did, he was just working for them, and the more he accomplished, the more people would fear him. When the hunt is over, the hounds are cooked. It was a tale as old as time. Jiang Hao had learned this lesson once. Why would he want to repeat it? Prince Duan started to speak, but couldn't find the words. The Northern King's rebellion isn't over, and the Jizhou Taiping Dao have rebelled too. The imperial court is under tremendous pressure. There's fighting everywhere. And now, the Golden Horde have sent envoys. They've offered to trade you for 200,000 war horses. Prince Duan looked up at Jiang Hao. 200,000 war horses. Jiang Hao was stunned. He was genuinely surprised. 200,000 war horses was a huge number, especially in the Central Plains. Each war horse was worth a fortune. 200,000 was an astronomical sum, even in the grasslands, where war horses were plentiful. 200,000 was an unimaginable amount. The Golden Horde Khan was being incredibly generous, willing to offer that much for him. For a moment, Jiang Hao was tempted, but only for a moment. He knew that nothing was free in this world, especially with someone he'd never met and had no connection with. For the Golden Horde Khan, this was business. You get what you pay for. The other party wouldn't spend so much without expecting to get even more in return. Her Majesty has decided to accept this deal, Jiang Hao asked. Prince Duan shook his head. She didn't agree, but she didn't refuse either. She's giving you the choice. If you agree, you can go. If you don't want to, no one can force you. Jiang Hao sneered. I'm just a prisoner. When did I get a choice? Prince Duan looked helpless. Whatever you think, I just want to say this, Jiang Hao, you're a citizen of the Great Zhou. I hope you won't do anything to let it down. He looked at Jiang Hao intently, then, without another word, he turned and left quickly. Watching Prince Duan's retreating figure, Jiang Hao narrowed his eyes. He had a feeling this wasn't so simple, and Prince Duan, he'd always thought of him as a useless guy with no cultivation, just like himself, but now, thanks to his Emperor's sight, he realized that Prince Duan had been hiding his strength, and that he was terrifyingly powerful. A Heavenly Man Realm Master. A peak-level Heavenly Man Realm Master. Of all the Heavenly Man Realm experts he'd encountered, only Zhang Jiao, who had touched upon the laws, could compare. Even Zhang Bao and Zhang Liang probably couldn't match him. This guy, hiding so deep. What's his angle? Is he secretly loyal? Or secretly treacherous? Jiang Hao muttered to himself. Chapter 44. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jiang Hao didn't meet many people he couldn't figure out. Prince Duan, Ji Yuanheng, was definitely one of them. Jiang Hao used to think the guy was just a simple, wise prince. Now, he wasn't so sure. The weird part was that based on everything the prince had done, he didn't seem ambitious at all. After all, holding the title of Prince Duan was about as good as it got for a vassal king. He had all the fame and status anyone could want. Short of straight-up rebelling, like Prince Yan before him, no one could touch him. There was no higher position to attain, unless he aimed for the throne itself. He'd even had chances to make a play for the throne, but he'd passed them up, like when the last emperor died unexpectedly. Prince Duan, as the most respected uncle, could have made a serious grab for power. Instead, he did nothing. As the head of the clan council, he actually worked to keep the other vassal kings in line. He then threw his full support behind Ji Luoyao, helping stabilize the Great Zhou dynasty as quickly as possible. It was all a bit of a head-scratcher for Jiang Hao. Whatever, he thought. If I can't figure it out, I can't figure it out. What's his angle? It's not my problem. As long as it doesn't mess with my chill time, he can do whatever he wants. Jiang Hao decided to drop the mystery. He went back to relaxing. It had been half a month since he'd broken through to the Tiangang realm. Thanks to Ing Yao's hard work, he was pulling in a decent amount of gangqi every day. Just absorbing and refining one portion of gangqi was like a month's worth of normal practice. Plus, he was also absorbing the free-floating gangqi in the air to improve his cultivation. So, his progress over the past couple of weeks had been surprisingly good, at least. Compared to other Tiangang realm cultivators, he was moving at lightning speed. He figured he'd already made a good start in the Tiangang realm. If Ing Yao kept up the pace for another month or so, he should be ready to finish the realm. But that wasn't even the best part. The best part was, in another 2 weeks, he'd been stuck in this prison for nearly 4 months. Tomorrow's the 4-month mark. Which means another special reward. Can't wait to see what it is. For Jiang Hao, cultivation was just a side hustle. His main focus was relaxation. With that thought, he drifted back to sleep. Jiang Hao woke up again the next day around noon. Most people would have been working for hours already. But Jiang Hao was just getting his day started. Since being locked up, sleeping in every day was just part of his routine. He looked up and saw a huge breakfast spread already laid out on the table. Tao Gongwang, the prison warden, had obviously prepared it ahead of time. Ever since taking that 3 corpses brain pill, the guy had been super dedicated, he'd been doing this every day for over a month, but Jiang Hao didn't rush over to eat. Instead, he sat up in bed, like he was expecting something. He didn't have to wait long before the system notification popped up, ding. 4-month relaxation milestone reached. Special reward, heroic spirit card acquired. Special reward. Heroic spirit card. Jiang Hao grinned, he couldn't help himself. He immediately checked it out. Mysterious card was floating quietly in the system space. Remembering the last time, Jiang Hao knew this card was formed by the power of rules. Once used, it would summon a heroic spirit from another time and place. Looking closely, Jiang Hao saw that the words on this heroic spirit card were different from the last one. The last card read, "The blue sky is dead, the yellow sky will rise." That one summoned the Zhangjiao brothers. This time, it read, "Are kings, princes, generals, and ministers born that way?" No way. Jiang Hao was stunned. The moment he saw those words, he had a pretty good idea what was coming. In his past life, that sentence had been hugely influential. It shaped countless dynasties. Is the system messing with me? First it summons the Zhangjiao brothers, those rebel leaders. Now it's going to summon the OG rebel. Jiang Hao's lips twitched. Even though he thought the system was playing games, he secretly loved it. Without a second thought, Jiang Hao used the heroic spirit card. Just like last time, the card instantly turned into an invisible force of rules. A blinding light shone, as if connecting to another dimension. Almost instantly, 2 projections appeared in the prison. Then, at an incredible speed, the projections solidified. In a blink, they turned into 2 men. Neither man was burly or tall. They were actually kind of skinny. They wore simple, linen clothes. They looked no different than common farmers, but the feeling they gave Jiang Hao was like 2 dragons breaking free from their cages. Their presence was just as intense as Zhang Jiao's had been. Zhang Jiao was like a deep pool, impossible to see the bottom. These 2 felt sharp and dangerous, impossible to ignore. The 2 slowly opened their eyes. The moment they entered this world, they understood many things, like their deaths in their previous lives, and their rebirth in this one, resurrection from the dead. It was a completely new experience for them. They looked up at Jiang Hao and stepped forward to salute. Chen Sheng, from Yangqing, pays respects to the Lord. Wu Guang, from Yangxia, pays respects to the Lord. 2 true heroes. Jiang Hao took a deep breath. He had a feeling, but hearing them say it confirmed everything. The 2 men in front of him were the first heroes in his past life to raise the banner of rebellion. They were the original instigators and pioneers of the peasant uprising. Their actions kicked off the downfall of the first unified dynasty in history. They dared to be first. They achieved so many firsts, setting aside individual strength. Even though this world had a longer history than his past one, few people could compare to these 2. Being reborn in this world had given them a new life. They were both at the peak of the heaven realm, and if Jiang Hao wasn't mistaken, they'd also understood a trace of the power of the law, like Zhang Jiao. In other words, they held the key to immortality. Maybe someday, they could actually open that door and break through to the immortal realm. Welcome, both of you. In this world, you're going to do great things. Jiang Hao said seriously. Chen Sheng and Wu Guang exchanged a look. They weren't actually brothers, but they were closer than brothers, especially after experiencing the failures and regrets of their past lives. They cherished their bond even more. They said in unison, "Whatever the master decides, we will do." Chapter 45. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Master, some folks are here. Sounds like those Golden Horde envoys the old guy mentioned yesterday. Yin Yao popped up to give Jiang Hao the heads up. The old guy Yin Yao was talking about was Prince Duan, who visited yesterday. Jiang Hao was expecting this. He told Chen Sheng and Wu Guang, head down to the 17th floor for a bit. Try to stay out of sight. If anything happens, Yin Yao will let you know. Chen Sheng and Wu Guang were on it. They grabbed the key from Jiang Hao, unlocked the cell door, and booked it to the 17th floor. How a prisoner like Jiang Hao got his hands on a cell key, well, let's just say it makes sense, okay. About a half cup of tea later, Baldan, the Golden Horde envoy, arrived at the 18th floor with his crew, led by Tao Gongwang, the warden. We need a word with the Duke of Wei, Baldan told Tao Gongwang. Tao Gongwang looked surprised. then shook his head. I'm not sure that's a good idea. We just want a private chat, nothing crazy. Besides, it's the Empress's orders. Cut us some slack. Baldun smoothly slipped a few gold notes from his coat into Tao Gongwang's hand. Tao Gongwang glanced at Jiang Hao, who gave a barely noticeable nod. He pocketed the gold, frowned, and said seriously, since it's Her Majesty's orders, fine, have your chat. But no funny business, or you might not make it out of here. Then Tao Gongwang and his men cleared out of the 18th floor. As for whether he was worried about Jiang Hao's safety, come on, all those bodies being hauled out of the 18th floor. You think they were fake? He was probably more worried about the Golden Horde envoys. Baldun, of course, had no idea what Tao Gongwang was thinking. Seeing his bribe worked, he couldn't help but smirk. He turned to Jiang Hao and greeted him first. Baldun, envoy of the Golden Horde, salutes the Duke of Weigua. Did your Khan send you just to bail me out? Jiang Hao asked, cutting right to the chase. Baldun looked a little surprised. He hadn't expected Jiang Hao, stuck in this prison, to know what was going on outside, but it made things easier. No need to beat around the bush. Truth be told, Duke of Weigua, the Khan gave us 3 goals this time. First, borrow troops to help the Great Zhou. Second, cozy up to the Queen of the Great Zhou. Third, convince you to join the Golden Horde. Prince Duan hadn't mentioned the first 2 items to Jiang Hao, but that was understandable. You don't air your dirty laundry, and Prince Duan wanted to save face. Jiang Hao was a little taken aback. He thought the Golden Horde Khan was way out of his league. If he remembered correctly, the Khan was pushing 60, that age wasn't a deal-breaker for a super-powered guy, but an old dude like that trying to hook up with Ji Luoyao, who was in her prime. That was cradle-robbing territory. He was also amazed by the Khan's ambition. He wanted to marry Ji Luoyao and use that as an excuse to swallow the Great Zhou whole. Knowing Ji Luoyao, the fact she didn't have Baldun's head chopped off on the spot showed serious restraint, and knowing how petty she could be, she'd definitely remember this. She might not be able to mess with the Golden Horde right now, but she'd settle the score later. So, looks like the first 2 are a no-go, which leaves number 3 as the only shot. Jiang Hao asked Baldun pointedly. For that 3rd one, we need your okay, Duke Weigua, Baldun said, grinning. He seemed a lot more respectful than when he was talking to the Empress. Simple reason, the Empress was important, but she couldn't control him. Jiang Hao was different. If he joined the Golden Horde, his status would skyrocket, way above Baldun's. He had to butter him up. Jiang Hao didn't react to the flattery. He changed the subject. Your Khan offered the Empress 200,000 warhorses. He must have attached some strings, right? They say, Duke Weigua, you're practically a fortune teller. And it's true. Baldun said in amazement, giving him a thumbs up. To be honest, Duke Weigua, before I left for the Central Plains, the Khan kept telling me that if you're willing to join us, any terms are negotiable. Whatever you want, you got it. He paused, watching Jiang Hao's face. Jiang Hao didn't budge. Let's get down to brass tacks. Skip the fluff. Baldun looked helpless. He glanced around, leaned in, and said quietly, the Khan says, if you help him succeed, he'll make you a king. Equals. Succeed? Jiang Hao asked, looking puzzled. Your Khan's already the boss of the Golden Horde, ruling the grasslands with a huge army. How could he be more successful? Baldun grinned. The grasslands are big, but not as rich as the Central Plains. The Khan's biggest dream is to rule the Central Plains. He says only you can help him do it. But I'm Zhou. How could I help the enemy? Jiang Hao said flatly. So what if you're Zhou? Baldun said casually. You've done so much for the Great Zhou, and what did you get? Thrown in prison. The Empress kicked you when you were down. Why be nice to her? He took a deep breath and said seriously, the Khan also says, if you help him rule the Central Plains, he'll hand over Jiangnan to you. You'll be in charge, no one bossing you around. Isn't that what you've always wanted? That even Jiang Hao was surprised by that offer. Whether the Golden Horde Khan could deliver was another story, but just offering that deal was beyond anything most people would do. Compared to the Empress, the Khan seemed to have real talent and vision, at least when it came to recruiting talent. The Khan was way ahead, he was willing to give you anything you asked for. So, what do you think, Duke of Wei? Baldun asked confidently. With those conditions, anyone would jump at the chance. In the Great Zhou, he was just a prisoner. The Empress could have him killed on a whim. His life was on the line. Join the Golden Horde, and he'd be rich, respected, a king in his own right. With Jiang Nan to rule, the choice was obvious, but Jiang Hao wasn't normal. Your Khan's generous, and the offer's tempting. But I'm not ambitious right now. I just want to chill. So I'll have to disappoint your Khan. Jiang Hao said calmly. What? Baldun stared at Jiang Hao, his eyes wide, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Chapter 46. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Are you kidding me, Duke Wei? Baldun's eyes widened as he asked, shocked. Jiang Hao shook his head, completely serious. Nope, telling you straight. But you're so young, why wouldn't you have any ambition? You just want to chill and goof off. Baldun didn't quite get the chill and goof off bit, but he understood the gist, which made it even harder to wrap his head around. At the prime of your life, you don't hustle. You just want to kick back and do nothing. Especially someone like Duke Wei, of all people. You know, you're Duke Wei. He blurted, disbelief written all over his face. It was like a regular Joe meeting a workaholic CEO. You're my idol. Idols aren't supposed to slack off. Precisely because I'm the Duke of Wei, I've seen and done everything I needed to. I've enjoyed everything I wanted. What more could I possibly want? Nothing. So why should I bust my butt? I might as well just chill and let myself rot. Jiang Hao explained, dead serious. Baldun gaped. He wanted to argue, but couldn't think of a comeback. What Jiang Hao said almost made sense. Yeah, I've experienced everything I wanted, enjoyed everything I should. Why am I still working my tail off? I might as well just chill and rot, as long as I don't get married, have kids, or buy a house. 5,000 a month. Heck, even 3,000 a month and I could live free as a bird. No one could tell me a thing. But what if the Empress wants you dead? Baldun seemed to get an idea, quickly latching onto it. He stared at Jiang Hao, eyes blazing, and said loudly, doesn't matter how comfy you are in this prison. You don't have any real freedom. If the Empress wants you gone, she only needs to say the word. What if the Empress wants me dead? Jiang Hao narrowed his eyes slightly, a faint glint flashed in his dark eyes, then he chuckled, shrugged, and said casually, if she wants to whack me, let her. I'll be back in 18 years. Baldun was speechless this time. As an envoy, he was usually silver-tongued, persuasive as could be. Wanna buy a house? Wanna buy a car? Wanna get married and have kids? He could always find a way to appeal to someone's desires, but facing a guy like Jiang Hao, who just wanted to slack off and be a bum, he was at a total loss. Whatever he said didn't faze Jiang Hao. This was some serious willpower. Baldun looked back at Dharma King Samo. Dharma King Samo just looked baffled. He couldn't figure out how anyone could be so jaded and unmotivated. Even he, an old geezer over 50, was still striving to reach higher peaks in martial arts. How could a talented young guy like you waste his youth like that? Though Dharma King Samo was a martial arts master, he wasn't exactly a strategic genius. If Baldun couldn't come up with a plan, neither could he. If this doesn't work, we go with the backup, Baldun said helplessly, turning back to Jiang Hao. His tone changed. Since you, Duke Wei, aren't willing to cooperate, then we'll just have to drag you back to the Golden Horde. Drag me back to the Golden Horde? Jiang Hao blinked, looking confused. Even if you manage to break out of this prison, which is a big if, the Imperial Capital's prison is thousands of miles from your Golden Horde. You really think you can haul me back there safe and sound? Baldun paused, then nodded, conceding Jiang Hao's point. Yeah, it's a long shot. The Great Zhou Court's power is everywhere in the Central Plains. The Jinui and Shenbusi are crawling with spies. Even if we arrange for a pickup, we still might not make it back. But the Khan gave us a direct order. Either bring you back alive, or bring you back dead. We have to bring one of the two. Since it was out in the open, Baldan didn't bother hiding his real intentions. Truth is, our Khan's made up his mind. If you, Duke Wei, are willing to help us, then you'll be our biggest asset when we conquer the Central Plains. But if you aren't willing to side with us, you could be the biggest obstacle. Since we can't have you as our greatest help, we definitely can't let you become our biggest threat. Get what I'm saying, Duke Wei? Baldan's face was cold, full of murderous intent. An envoy wasn't just a spy, he was also expendable. If Jiang Hao could be brought back to the Golden Horde, great. If not, when push came to shove, he was ready to trade his life for Jiang Hao's, better dead than alive, and trading his life for the famous Duke Wei. In his eyes, that was worth it. And what if I don't want to go with you? Jiang Hao suddenly looked up and asked. Baldan blinked. He sized Jiang Hao up and down, then, he couldn't help but laugh. Duke Wei, you really are a talented statesman. A rare genius when it comes to governing a country. You're a brilliant commander on horseback, and a natural when it comes to working with the people. In all of that, I, Baldan, can't even hope to measure up. But everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses. No one's perfect. And no matter how smart you are, you can't hide the fact that you're scrawny. Ever hear the saying, never bring a book to a gunfight? So, what are you gonna do if you don't want to go? I might be just an envoy, but I'm still a master in the Dharma realm. To put it bluntly, I can. He raised a finger. End you with one flick. Before he could finish the sentence, a fist slammed into his chest, a terrifying force exploded. In that split second, Baldan clearly heard his ribs snap, crack, crack. The next thing he knew, he was flying backward. He slammed into the cell wall, leaving a human-shaped dent, practically embedded in a stone. A Dharma realm master's body was incredibly tough, but Baldan wasn't dead. Instead, he stared at Jiang Hao, eyes wide, as if seeing him for the first time. Shock and disbelief filled his eyes. Jiang Hao, on the other hand, casually retracted his fist like he'd just swatted a fly. Then, Jiang Hao asked, completely serious. What was that about killing me with one finger? Chapter 47. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At that moment, everyone on the 18th floor of Heavenly Prison, even Baldan stuck in the wall, froze, their eyes bugged out in disbelief. It was like watching the sun pop up in the west. Duke Wei, Jiang Hao, was more than just famous in Great Zhou. The Golden Horde knew him well, too. They'd been studying him forever, even sending spies to Great Zhou to dig up dirt, and everyone knew one thing, sure. Jiang Hao was a whiz at running the country and the army, but when it came to cultivation. Total dud. Okay, so being a cultivation dud wasn't exactly rare. Plenty of folks had a so-so talent. If everyone was a cultivation genius, who'd want to farm? But with Duke Wei, Jiang Hao, it stuck out like a sore thumb, a glaring flaw compared to his other skills. Back when he was the prime minister, even Empress Ji Luoyao had less powerful people around her. Otherwise, he'd have been taken out years ago, one way or another. So, what were they seeing now? Duke Wei, Jiang Hao, had just cold-clocked Baldan. Okay, so Baldan wasn't expecting it, but he was still a powerhouse in the Dharma image realm. That's second only to the heavenly man realm. In Great Zhou and the Golden Horde, cracking the Dharma image realm made you a top-tier player, but that guy got decked by a known scrub. This was messing with their heads big time. So, you're not a dud, you're a Dharma image realm master. No, you're not in the Dharma image realm, you're in the Tiangang realm. You haven't even hit perfection in the Tiangang realm. What the heck is going on? Samo Dharma King, being a heavenly man realm expert, had sharp eyes. Jiang Hao had kept his human emperor powers under wraps, so he hadn't noticed anything before, but now that Jiang Hao had cut loose, he could ballpark his cultivation. That revelation just stunned everyone even more. If Jiang Hao hadn't even perfected the Tiangang realm, how did he knock out Baldan, a Dharma image realm master? Kill him. Kill him now. Baldan finally snapped out of it. he didn't care how Jiang Hao had pulled this off, or how he'd managed to punch him across the room with his Tiangang realm cultivation. All that mattered was Jiang Hao wasn't the weakling they thought he was. He had the power of the Tiangang realm. His apparent weakness had been his only real flaw, and now that it was gone, Jiang Hao was even more dangerous than before. The Golden Horde couldn't get worse news, they needed to take him out ASAP. King Samo, finish him. Baldan roared. His outburst shook everyone back to reality. The Golden Horde envoys were no slouches either, even the weakest had made it to the Longmen realm, and Samo Dharma King was a Heavenly Man realm powerhouse, not just any Heavenly Man realm either. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to hold his own against the two Imperial guards, Huban and Yulin, at the Taishian Palace. I hate picking on the weak, but orders are orders. His Majesty the Khan has commanded it, so, I must kill him. I hope the Duke of Wei will forgive me, Samo King said impassively. He was about to make a move, but Jiang Hao was cool as a cucumber, not scared at all. Instead, he told him calmly, "You're not fighting me." Before the words were fully out, the cell door was thrown open from the outside with a crash. Two burly guys in plain clothes walked in, and with them came two terrifying auras that made everyone want to crawl into a hole. It was like two dragons had crashed the party, turning the quiet pond into a raging sea. The terrifying pressure wasn't just in their heads. Even Samo Dharma King, the Heavenly Man realm expert, was shaken. He knew he was being watched by two intensely powerful senses. Any wrong move, and he'd be caught in a storm. Those two, their Heavenly Man realm masters. Samo Dharma King gasped. He'd always known the Central Plains had its share of powerhouses, but the number of Heavenly Man realm masters was more than he'd imagined. Running into two Heavenly Man realm masters at the palace the other day was one thing. That was the heart of Great Zhou, after all, so it made sense to have powerful guards, but two Heavenly Man realm masters in a prison? Were there that many Heavenly Man realm masters in Great Zhou? Were they so common that even prisons were guarded by them, two at a time? Samo Dharma King was reeling, but one thing was clear: these two Heavenly Man realm masters were way more dangerous than the ones from yesterday. As the Golden Horde's national teacher, Samo Dharma King was a top-tier Heavenly Man realm master. He could handle most Heavenly Man realm fighters without breaking a sweat, but these two strangers were different. He'd need to give it everything he had to take on even one of them, let alone both. His breath came quick and shallow, and his nerves were shot. "What are your names?" Samo Dharma King demanded, struggling to resist the pressure, but Chen Sheng and Wu Guang just stared at Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao didn't bat an eye. He just waved his hand and said flatly, "A bunch of barbarians from beyond the wall. Kill them all." Chen Sheng and Wu Guang got the message. No more talking. In a split second, their auras went supernova. Two terrifying storms exploded, one on the left, one on the right, heading for them. Chapter 48. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Alright, don't say I didn't warn you. The Samo Dharma King's eyes blazed with fighting spirit as he roared. He was a martial arts fanatic through and through. He'd come to the Central Plains to test himself against the region's best fighters, hoping to push his own limits. While this fight was unexpected and not of his choosing, he wasn't one to back down from a challenge. Discarding his reservations, he instantly began channeling the power of heaven and earth. A golden aura enveloped him, transforming him into a Buddhist arhat as he charged towards Chen Sheng. "You've got a death wish." Chen Sheng was no ordinary man. Born in poverty, he was a defiant spirit who once declared, "How can a sparrow know the ambition of a swan?" That a rising star, he never bowed to authority. He wasn't about to take a back seat to some monk from the sticks. Meeting the Dharma King's charge head-on, Chen Sheng didn't flinch. He unleashed a devastating punch. His fist crackled with raw power, the force capable of shattering anything in its path. A deafening explosion rocked the heavenly prison. Even with three celestial realm masters channeling the power of heaven and earth to contain it, the Dharma King's golden aura shimmered, his defenses seemingly impenetrable. Chen Sheng answered skill with brute strength, his momentum unrelenting. Each attack matched the other. Seeing the two locked in combat, Wu Guang held back. Following Jiang Hao's instructions, he moved to eliminate the remaining members of the Golden Horde. While those present were indeed strong, that term was only in relation to regular fighters. Facing Wu Guang, a peak celestial realm powerhouse, they didn't stand a chance. One by one, they fell before Wu Guang's onslaught. Some tried to drag Jiang Hao down with them. Baldan, desperate, threw himself at Jiang Hao, resigned to death but determined to take him along. It was a pipe dream. Before he could reach Jiang Hao, the shadow demon struck from the shadows, pulling him into the darkness. A scream echoed, and the once powerful Dharma image realm warrior breathed his last. In a matter of moments, King Samo was the only member of the Golden Horde left alive in the 18th level of the prison, but facing Chen Sheng's relentless attacks, King Samo could only defend, relying on his golden body technique to endure. Then Wu Guang shouted, "Chen Sheng, stop toying with him." Those words nearly broke King Samo's spirit. Toying with him? After all this, was he just playing around? No way. King Samo couldn't believe it, but before he could speak, Chen Sheng stopped abruptly and said casually, "You're not bad. I had a good time. As thanks, I'll make it quick." Chen Sheng's aura swelled. Like Zhang Ju before him, he commanded the power of heaven and earth, creating a unique domain centered on himself. Within this domain, he was absolute, the power of heaven and earth swirling around him. A sudden gust of wind arose, morphing into lethal wind blades. Each wind blade was like a magic weapon. Their razor-sharp presence made everyone's blood run cold. Chen Sheng controls the law of wind. His attacks are like a hurricane, unstoppable. That Wu Guang explained to Jiang Hao. He didn't intervene. He knew that while King Samo was strong, he hadn't grasped the power of law. That made all the difference at the celestial realm level. Chen Sheng was more than enough to handle King Samo, especially with the shadow demon lurking in the shadows. King Samo couldn't escape now if his life depended on it. "What law do you control?" Jiang Hao asked curiously. "I control the law of rain, and I'm good at attacking. Chen Sheng and I could create a storm of devastation. We'd be unbeatable among celestial realm fighters," Wu Guang said confidently. Both were peak celestial realm powerhouses who had already grasped a sliver of the power of law. They were the cream of the crop in their world. Together, they were indeed unstoppable. Jiang Hao figured that even the Zhang Jiao brothers couldn't stand against them. Only Zhang Jiao himself had reached that level. Meanwhile, Chen Sheng unleashed the full force of his law, and the battle with King Samo neared its end. The golden body technique that King Samo was using was truly formidable. Few could ever penetrate it. But he was facing Chen Sheng, a master of the law of wind with unstoppable attacks. Chen Sheng's palm turned into a blade, and with a single strike, he shattered the golden body that King Samo was so proud of. A gaping wound exposed the bone of his chest. Crimson blood flowed freely. King Samo stared at the wound in disbelief, his eyes empty. He couldn't believe that years of training had been so easily undone. The blow had shattered not only his defense but also his pride and confidence. Chen Sheng saw it all, but there was no mercy in his eyes. He didn't hesitate. He moved forward, step by step. Then he raised his right hand, ready to end King Samo's life. But King Samo knelt down, looked at Jiang Hao, and cried, "This monk is willing to surrender." Everyone was stunned. Chen Sheng didn't know what to do, so he turned to Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao stepped forward and asked, "Why do you want to surrender?" He couldn't see this Samo Dharma king fearing death. King Samo looked up at Chen Sheng. His dim eyes suddenly burned with passion. "It is said that if you hear the truth in the morning, you can die in the evening. But I've just glimpsed the path forward, and I can't bear to die like this. As long as you're willing to guide me, I'll do anything." King Samo wasn't afraid of death, but he would do anything for the sake of martial arts. Jiang Hao frowned slightly. He had never encountered such a martial arts fanatic, but considering the man's strength and status, what did he have to lose if he spares his life? Thinking this, Jiang Hao immediately produced a 3 corpses brain pill and tossed it to him. "Take this pill first, then we'll talk." Unlike Tao Gongwang, who hesitated, King Samo swallowed the pill without a word. Chapter 49. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You don't even want to know what you just swallowed? Jiang Hao asked, surprised that the Samo Dharma king had taken the pill without a word. The Samo Dharma king looked taken aback, like he'd just remembered. "Was that poison?" he asked. Jiang Hao facepalmed, his expression one of disbelief. "Not just poison, but the deadliest kind." He then explained the whole deal with the 3 corpses brain worm pill. Once ingested, the worms would burrow into the skull. Without the antidote, they'd attack, leaving even heavenly realm masters with little chance. After all, the worms targeted the brain directly, a place even those powerful cultivators couldn't defend. The Samo Dharma King shrugged it off. It's all right. As long as I follow the Wei Duke's orders, he won't kill me for no reason. He waved his hand dismissively, seemingly unfazed. In fact, he seemed to be in high spirits. He was staring at Chen Sheng with an intensity, like a kid eyeing a brand new toy. His eagerness made Chen Sheng's skin crawl. Being eyed like that by a powerhouse made him want to shout, "I'm not gay." He also silently cursed himself for not killing the llama faster when he had the chance. Alright, Chen Sheng can teach you a few things later. First, we need to sort out this mess, Jiang Hao said, gesturing to the bodies on the ground. So many dead in the imperial prison needed covering up, or he'd never have peace. Luckily, with insiders like the Samo Dharma King and Tao Gongwang, explaining things would be easier. Jiang Hao quickly found Tao Gongwang and concocted 2 stories, one for the Empress and one for the Golden Horde Khan. Then, he waved them away. Tao Gongwang didn't care, he just did his job and followed Jiang Hao's orders. But the Samo Dharma King, not as familiar with Jiang Hao, couldn't help asking, "Wei Duke, aren't you coming with me?" Then, quickly, to avoid any misunderstandings, he added, "What I mean is, since the Golden Horde Khan is willing to pay a fortune to ransom you, you could take the opportunity to escape. Once you're out of the Great Zhou capital, you'll be free, and you won't have to go to the Golden Horde." Jiang Hao was surprised. He'd thought the Samo Dharma King was a bit slow, but maybe he'd misjudged him. The guy was just too focused on martial arts to bother thinking much. Maybe the Golden Horde's national teacher wasn't so dumb after all. His escape plan was actually pretty smart. If Jiang Hao tried to sneak away and got caught, the Empress would turn the world upside down to find him, dead or alive. The Jinyui, the Shenbu division, and even the Gongfeng Hall would be on his tail. Those bloodhounds were much sharper than anyone knew, masters of all sorts of secret tracking methods. He could hide in the mountains, but they'd still sniff him out. But if he were officially ransomed by the Golden Horde, like the Samo Dharma King suggested, and then made his break, he'd be in the clear. Even Chen Sheng and Wu Guang were on board. "Once you're out of the capital, Master, the world is your oyster. We're ready to follow you and make something big happen," they exclaimed, eyes shining with excitement. As the saying goes, old habits die hard. Neither of them was the type to settle down, which was why they'd rebelled in their past lives. And now, reborn with incredible power, they were itching for action, but Jiang Hao just shook his head at their eager faces. "You don't get the Empress." "Huh?" They were confused. Jiang Hao smiled and explained, "You can't seriously believe she actually intends to let me go to the Golden Horde, do you?" "But she promised, right there in court." King Samo looked incredulous. "She's the ruler of the Great Zhou, she can't just go back on her word, can she?" He carefully repeated the Empress's statement. Jiang Hao's expression grew even more certain. "She just asked you to ask me if I agreed. She didn't say she'd definitely agree. Women, they're impossible to understand. She might not care about others, but me." Jiang Hao paused for effect, then said meaningfully, "If I agree to go to the Golden Horde with you, I'd never leave this prison alive. I'd be dead meat." Chen Sheng and Wu Guang's faces darkened. "With us protecting you, my lord, who could touch you? We'll just fight our way out. I don't believe anyone in this city can stop us. I don't doubt your strength, but there are countless powerful people in the capital, and hundreds of thousands of imperial guards. Even you can't fight an army. Besides, even if we broke through, you'd be showing your hand. The Empress would see you as a threat, and the rest of the Great Zhou would be on our backs. We'd never have a peaceful day. And most importantly, why risk it? Things are fine as they are." Chen Sheng and Wu Guang were silent. Then, Jiang Hao turned to the still skeptical King Samo and said, "Go walk out of the prison and see for yourself. You'll understand what I mean." "I'll do it." The Samo Dharma King was a man of action. He strode off towards the imperial prison. The path was clear. Soon, he reached the first floor. But unlike the bustling scene from before, it was now deserted. The jailers and prisoners were gone. The Samo Dharma king frowned, sensing something was wrong. Still, he walked towards the exit. He pushed open the prison doors. The sight outside made his eyes widen in shock. The prison was surrounded by imperial guards. Giant iron shields, like walls, blocked every exit. Spears flashed in the sun like a forest of deadly rain. Archers waited with drawn bows, countless arrows aimed at him. Dozens of giant crossbows were in position, ready to fire. Elite warriors with serious cultivation levels glared at him. The leaders, the Tiger Guards and the Yulin cavalry, released the terrible pressure of their heavenly realm powers. Combined with the army's presence, it felt like a frozen hell. Even a master like the Samo Dharma king felt a chill. The heavenly realm was powerful, but still flesh and blood. Surrounded by an army, anyone could die, especially with so many powerhouses watching. This was a dragon's den. Now, the Samo Dharma king understood what Jiang Hao meant. You don't get the Empress. Or rather, the Empress's offer was a trap. Chapter 50. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even a tough guy like King Samo felt a knot in his stomach, dying in a fair fight with someone his equal. He could almost swallow that, but to be taken out by these nobodies. A powerhouse from the heaven realm like him? That would be a real kick in the teeth, plus, he just glimpsed a bright future. He definitely didn't want to end things here. He sucked in a deep breath, wrestled his nerves into submission, and boomed, I'm the Grand Tutor of the Golden Horde, and an envoy sent by the Khan to Great Zhou. I'm here to visit the Duke of Weigua at your Empress's request. So, what's this all about? Are you looking to start a war by offering a foreign envoy? The two Imperial Guard commanders, from the Huban and Yulin divisions, traded glances. The Huban commander stepped forward, his face like stone. Relax, envoy. We're just under orders to secure a prisoner of the state. Where is the Duke of Weigua? He's still inside. He turned down our offer to come back to the Golden Horde with us. Samo could practically feel the tension bleed out of the air. The killing intent dialed back several notches. The writing was on the wall. The Empress had set a trap. It wasn't a test of them, it was a test of Jiang Hao. If Jiang Hao had taken the bait and walked out of that prison, blood would have painted the ground, but Jiang Hao stayed put, so they were off the hook. Orders were orders, but nobody here was thrilled at the prospect of going to war with the legendary Duke of Wei, especially not on their watch. Then the Yulin commander, looking like a thundercloud, stalked forward, fixing Samo with a murderous stare. You all went in. You came out alone. Care to explain what happened in there? Samo's face didn't twitch. They tried to strong-arm the Duke. To avoid an international incident, I intervened. Their bodies are inside. It was the story they'd prepped. Back in the Golden Horde, he'd spin a different yarn for the Khan. One story for one ear, another for the other. Easy peasy. The Huban and Yulin commanders looked at each other, a prickly feeling in their gut, but Samo was playing it straight, and they couldn't put their finger on what was off. They sent a team into the prison to check. The report came back. The Duke of Wei was still locked up in his cell. The Golden Horde envoys, including Baldan, were indeed dead. The lingering energy on the corpses suggested they'd been taken out by someone from the Heaven Realm. Samo was the only Heaven Realm fighter in the prison, so, had he really cleaned house himself? The commanders stared at each other, utterly baffled. The Imperial Palace, a female attendant delivered the news from the prison. Ji Luoyao gave a slight nod, signaling she'd heard. She waved the attendant away. Looks like you called it wrong, uncle. He didn't take the Golden Horde's invitation. He stayed put. A smug little smile played on Ji Luoyao's lips. Across from her sat Prince Duan Ji Yuanheng. The prince showed no reaction, no sign of being wrong. It was as if he'd expected it. He looked up and said, Your Majesty seems pleased he didn't leave the prison. Ji Luoyao stiffened, and her smile vanished. She said coolly, I'm relieved. He's made mistakes, but he hasn't forgotten where he comes from. He hasn't committed treason. Prince Duan shook his head, not pushing the point. He simply asked, if he had walked out, would you have killed him? Ji Luoyao paused, then lifted her chin. Traitors deserve death. It doesn't matter who they are. Then I implore your majesty to have Jiang Hao executed in secret. The prince's words hung in the air. Ji Luoyao stared at him, aghast. Uncle, why? Isn't the Duke of Weigua your closest friend? You asked me to clear his name. Now, you want me to have him killed, that she couldn't make sense of it. Prince Duan said evenly, this is a different situation. If your majesty had pardoned him then, something might have been salvaged. Now, it's too late. You're right. The Duke of Weigua is my friend. I value his brilliance, admire his character. But how can personal feelings compare to the fate of my family's empire? Precisely because I'm close to him, I understand his power, and I fear it. He might be powerless himself, but he can turn the world upside down. Any faction that wins his favor could threaten Great Zhou's rule. We can't let someone like that live. His gaze burned into her, and Ji Luoyao faltered. But he hasn't rebelled. We can't execute him without cause. Prince Duan nearly lost his composure, without cause, this whole thing was her doing. She'd cooked up charges to throw the Duke in prison. Did she think everyone was blind? But the person in front of him, his niece, was the Empress of Great Zhou. He didn't call her out. He pleaded, Your Majesty, if we wait, it will be too late. Ji Luoyao's mouth opened and closed. She knew he was right, and after her failure with Jiang Hao, she knew he couldn't help her anymore. In that case, keeping him alive wasn't just useless. It was dangerous, better to take the prince's advice, a quick, clean execution, and never look back, but, she couldn't bring herself to kill him. She was torn. Finally, she inhaled and said, Don't worry, uncle. I'll arrange for tighter security at the prison. He won't have a chance to escape. Besides, he's smart. He'll stay inside and out of trouble. The prince's face fell. He started to protest, Your Majesty, you. Ji Luoyao cut him off with a wave. Enough, uncle. I've made my decision. Seeing her set jaw, the prince sighed. Hesitation breeds disaster. I just hope your majesty won't waver when the time comes. Ji Luoyao's eyes narrowed. If that day ever comes, I'll take care of it personally.